Hi there, I'm AWayfaringFrog and welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new here. Today I'm building another Animal Crossing inspired speed build in The Sims 4, and this is going to be a wizard's tower for the character Rodeo from the Animal Crossing games. I'll add a picture on screen of the character in case you're not familiar with him, but essentially in the DLC for Animal Crossing New Horizons, Happy Home Designer I think it's called, whenever you discuss building a vacation home with Rodeo, he specifically requests you to make him a wizard tower, and I think he wears sort of a wizard style outfit in the games, so it felt like the perfect kind of house to make for him. Also, it's the kind of build that I've been wanting to make for a while. I've always liked the idea of raising up a wizard tower on sort of this land pedestal that I've made using the terrain tools in The Sims 4. The only thing that's put me off in the past is that orange color that borders any raised up land. It only applies to where it's a cliff edge, so if it's quite a smooth piece of land, it doesn't do it. But in this case, as you can see, it's just really bright orange, and I've never liked how it looks, which is why I've never bothered trying this before. But I actually downloaded some tool or the tool mod from Twisted Mexi, as well as their Better Build Buy mod, to allow me to eventually cover that orange wall with just bricks from in the game. So I think that really helped it look nice, and that's part of what drove me to finally have a go at building something like this. So I hope you like it. I did end up cutting out a lot of the process of me using Tool though, but if you wanted to download it yourself, there's a lot of tutorials online, specifically from Twisted Mexi, but I think some other Sims tubers included their own tutorials on there, so you can always take a look yourself. Also, it actually turned out I was using an outdated version of the tutorial when I first had a go at this, so when I do include that, and if you are already familiar with Tool, you might wonder why I'm using that version, but that was why. Also, because of some other mods I've got in the game, I think it ends up looking a bit weird. The pop-ups on screen just look a little bit broken. So don't be surprised if you see that. Again, that's just the mods in my game. I probably haven't updated something else. Speaking of mods as well, I have included a list of the mods that I use in the description of this video. So if you are interested in any of those, you can find the list there. And I've included links to where you can get them online. Anyway, I've talked over the entire building process of this so far, but now we're just looking at adding in a pond here next to the cliffside. I sort of struggled a bit with this because it was so close to the edge of the lot, but I tried to make it look as natural as possible and curve in with that curvy path that I've added in using terrain tools. Again though, it looks a bit like a bean, but no surprise there, my ponds always do. I also just thought it would be a nice addition since this is built with spellcasters from The Sims 4 in mind, since they're the wizards that we have in the game, and they need a lot of fish for their potion making, so to be able to just stock ponds with the fish that you need I think is quite helpful, so that was the idea behind that. And now just looking at some wallpapers, I used the darkest brick is from from Magic Realm, or the Realm of Magic pack. I always call it something different every time. And then the bigger bricks that are the grey with sort of some multicolours, that's from the University pack. I also used a few siding pieces from Get Together, and the foundation that I've just added was actually from the castle kit. That's still one of my favourite kits. I don't build castles very often, but I feel like some of the items are quite versatile. And again, I think I incorporate a few of the windows from that in this build. So I liked how different it was. I tried to stay away from some of the Realm of Magic items just because though I haven't put any on the channel yet, I almost always use those for my Spellcaster builds, so I was trying to look at something a bit different. But I'm sure in the future I'll do a Spellcaster heavy build at some point, so hopefully you'll look forward to that. So this tower is where I used those castle kit specific windows. They work really well for a tower. I think that's what they were originally designed for, so they seemed really perfect to include here. I did struggle a bit with where to place them, but once I finally figured that out, I just skipped ahead to where I'm adding the rest of the building's windows. These are actually from Horse Ranch. I quite like how rustic they looked, and they fit really nicely into the Get Together wallpaper, so I enjoyed using those in this. Whilst I wanted the build to be quite dark and moody as well, I quite like the colour of the roof that I ended up picking, especially because Rodeo actually has some kind of pinky red accents on his character. So it was quite nice to be able to bring that into the outside of the build. And now just looking at the floor plan here, I figured I'd have the top part of the tower be the potion room, and the bedroom would be the middle part of the tower, with the base of the build just being the living space. So I include a kitchen, dining room, and living room here. I also went in with the Realm of Magic flooring for the outside spaces. I think I might also include it in the bathroom, but I really love that flooring, so I had to use it here. And now just jumping back inside for a moment, I usually like figuring out the floor plan a little bit so I can decide where to put the rest of the windows on a build. So I'm just putting some temporary placement furniture to help me figure that out. So this isn't how it will end up looking. You might notice though, I haven't included a bathroom. I did forget that until it came to furnishing. For a bit, I thought I could try and sneak like a 1x3 tile bathroom in and use the university shower, but I ended up doing something completely different, and I think it looked a lot better in the end. And now I've just jumped ahead to where you can see all of the stonework that I've put around the edge. It took me quite a while, which is why I didn't include any of that footage, because it really wasn't worth watching. But I think it looks so much nicer, and it really works with the surrounding area. They're actually from the Cottage Living debug, but they're about the same colour as what's included in the Realm of Magic world. So we're building in Glimmerbrook at the moment, and the rocks are about the same grey tone. So I thought they worked really well. Realm of Magic just didn't have the right shaped rocks for me to be able to do this, which is why I didn't end up using those. But now just adding a bit more terrain, including some foliage. I've also added vines to the outside of the build at this point. Again, I used Tool a lot for that to be able to get those hanging plants off the balcony. Again, I cut all of that out just because it was a bit painful to watch me, but I tried to include as much as I could so you could see some of the process. And just adding in a few plants to the rocks here. As you can see now, the pop-up for the Tool mod looks a bit weird, but that is just because of a conflicting mod I think I've got. I'm not really sure, but that's not the Tool mod, that's something else I've got that's an issue. I tried to surround the area with quite a few flowers and things just to brighten up the space. So I incorporated quite a lot of the low-lying yellow flowers. I really liked a lot of the trees that I added in as well, just to make it seem a bit more foresty, since this lot is within a forest in Glimmerbrook. I tried to incorporate as many as possible without covering up the build. And of course it's quite a small lot, at least it's not very wide, so I couldn't incorporate too many around the area. I was just very limited to the front and back, and that was about it. But I think it looks quite nice and it fits into the surrounding area well enough in the end. So here you can see that I'm jumping into live mode to use Tool, which is the outdated version of that if you don't have Better Build by. If you do have that other mod by Twisted Mexi, then you can do everything in build mode, which I learned to do a bit later on. And so now I'm just adding some more foliage around. I really like these base game plants, and I find them useful to just line different areas of like planter spaces that I want to include. So I added quite a few of those, and I raised several of them up, which I'll show a bit later, just to add a bit more dimension to the rock areas, so it doesn't look quite so grey. Another thing I really like about the Tool mod is just being able to really specifically size things. It's something I've been quite keen to do for a while, especially with rugs in the game, which again I do use later on. And if you download the build, it won't count as having CC in it at all, so you can easily find it on the gallery and you can download it just fine. I think it's just if you move any of the items, there's a possibility they might snap back to their original size or something, but otherwise it shouldn't be an issue. And so now I've pretty much finished with the landscaping. You'll see I've added a lot more flowers, including some of those base game purple flowers. I'm just jumping into the potion room now. I added a couple of cabinets here from the Magic Realm pack. I couldn't decide between the two cauldrons to use for a bit as well. I really like the crystal themed one, but it felt a bit more suitable for the character Rodeo if I just include the more standard looking cauldron. So I left that one in here. I really like making potion rooms, but this one's quite small, so I struggled a bit with finding spaces to include a lot of different items that I wanted. So like these shelving units that come from Realm of Magic pack, I only managed to fit one in the end. As much as I'd have liked to include a few more, it just wasn't really space effective. And then I like the idea of having this open book on a stand from the Vampires pack, just as if it was a potion recipe that they were currently looking at while using the cauldron. So I thought that was a fun idea. I've never actually put one of those in a potion room that I've made in the past, so that was a bit different. And then these little shelving items from the Crystal Creations stuff pack. I like how they fit just about the same size as the windows from the Castle Estate kit, and it just allowed me to put a bit more clutter on since, again, it's such a small space, I can't really include many big shelving units. So I thought that was a good compromise. And I have, again, play tested this, so your Sims can walk around that cauldron just fine, and they can use it, so that's not a problem. And then just clustering up the walls with lots of artwork. Again, I picked them from Werewolves, Realm of Magic, and Crystal Creations. They all felt really perfect for the space. I'm actually really looking forward to if the Sims team ever make, say, a fairy pack, which I think is quite a highly requested pack in the game, just because I bet it would come with a lot of magical items that would really help to make these kinds of potion rooms thrive a lot more. So I really hope they do that, and playing with occults is one of my favorite things to do in The Sims 4. So any new occults that they might add to the game, I just really love using. So I'm excited for that. Fingers crossed, one of the next packs will be an occult in that case. Let me know if you agree and what you normally play with in the game. I'd be quite interested to know. Just adding a few more items from Realm of Magic, including these brooms, a few books, and I think I added a couple of the items that you can grow. It was the Mandrake and Valerian root on the side, so your sim can plant those, or just there's a spell where you can just copy paste items, so I thought it was quite useful to have those just laying there for you to be able to do that if you wanted. And including a few crystals, which I tried to pick the ones out that are actually used for the potions in the game, so hopefully they can be quite useful from a gameplay perspective. Just grabbing a rug now to go under this cauldron, which is again from the Magic Realm pack, before we're heading down into the bedroom. And here I didn't want the room to look too shabby, but I did really love this werewolf's bed, so I ended up going with it. The colours just felt really perfect, and even though there are sort of patches on the quilt and things, I think it ended up tying together really nicely with everything else that I had. I ended up adding some base game curtains to the room as well. They tied in nicely with the colour. For this one under the ladder though, I had to use a different one just because it was clipping with the ladder and looked a bit funny. And now I'm adding a rug from the Werewolves pack again, and I used Tool to size it down slightly, something that I'm really happy I can do now, which is, like I said earlier, one of the main reasons I ended up getting that mod at all. And now just adding some clutter around the room to make the space look a bit lived in. I wasn't able to put too much in here because, again, it's quite a small room, being just a small octagon. But I managed to fit quite a few items, and I think it suits the wizard style really well. It's also got all of the sort of gameplay necessary items, so there's also a dresser and a mirror in there, and a few bookshelves in case your sim wants to read. The book nook kit really comes in handy for a lot of these Spellcaster wizard themed builds, so again I couldn't resist using that throughout the space. And just grabbing a small rug here to lead to the outside balcony area, it also helps add in a bit more colour to the room, so I enjoyed including that. On the balcony itself, there isn't much out here. I included a telescope from the Werewolves pack. This little stool is actually from the Jungle Adventure pack. And then I just got a few planter boxes. When I play tested, I did go in and add a couple of items that, again, your sim might need for potion making, so they are usable. And now this is about where I realized I had no bathroom. So I'm just adding a bump out to the back of the build to be able to incorporate that. As I said earlier, I thought I'd try and sneak something really small in, but I decided in the end having a bigger bathroom felt a lot nicer, which is why I ended up doing this. And it actually worked out really well with the space that I had out the back, so I didn't have to change too much. And we're decorating the bathroom now. I only included a bathtub in here just because of the way I had the windows placed. I didn't really want to have a shower tub combo, and the shower itself was a bit too tall for the room and again covered up some of the windows. So I just went for a bath. But again, if your Sim's a spellcaster, there is actually a spell where they can clean themselves using magic. So you don't necessarily need to have a bath. If you needed to get your Sim ready quickly for work or something, they could just do that instead. So from a gameplay perspective, it does take longer, but I don't think it's a deal breaker for spellcasters at least. And now just including some wallpaper to again bring in the kind of moody feel that I've got around the rest of the build. The clutter I used is quite a lot of it is from the Laundry Day pack. And then again, bringing in another one of those werewolves rugs, just in a different swatch, and being able to use the tool mod yet again, which I've been enjoying. I also added this plant in the corner, which is from the Paranormal Stuff pack. That's another really useful pack for these kinds of builds, so I incorporated quite a lot of that in here. I didn't end up using the seance table though, just because there wasn't really much space for it in the end, and I was focusing on spellcasting rather than seance and ghost items. But again, you could maybe add that in as an outdoor table, or switch out the dining table for that if you did want to include a bit more paranormal stuff. And now I'm just adding a few beams across the ceiling in the main living space. I thought it added quite nice dimension to the ceiling when you're in live mode within the game. And as you can see, I've now reorganized how the kitchen will be laid out since the door to the bathroom got in the way of how I originally planned to have it. So I ended up having this island in the center of the kitchen to be able to fit in the kitchen sink, and just trying to figure out how to add in this corner cabinet. It's sort of a shame it's so difficult to get those items to place where you want them to, but it usually likes to snap to the outside corner of walls, which I very rarely use when I build kitchens in The Sims. I don't actually think I've ever made a kitchen that has that kind of curve around a corner, but I do really like those pieces. And now just adding plenty of clutter from the horse ranch kit mostly. Again, it had that rustic feel, but didn't feel shabby like a lot of the werewolves items. So I thought they worked really nicely here. I also picked this base game stove, which looks very traditional, and I think it's an off-the-grid lot item if you wanted to play with that feature. I didn't add it into the build or anything, so you can add that yourself separately if you did want to play with that. But again, it added to the kind of wizard in a forest theme that I was going for here. And just picking out a few lights to go around the room, I ended up going with these horse ranch lights again. The ones outside are the small wall lantern that you can get, and then I've got a few of the chandeliers around the various spaces. Horse ranch was actually a pack that I was not expecting to like as much as I did. I played so much with that. Now jumping over to the living room in the build, I'm just selecting a sofa from Cottage Living, but I end up swapping that out for this one again from Horse Ranch. Originally, I thought I'd use this more brightly coloured swatch. I quite liked the different colours that kind of brought in from the other areas of the room, like the blue from the kitchen and things, but it just felt a bit too vibrant. And then I think the rug I ended up picking didn't really go with it. And that was from the Growing Together pack. I did try out this one from Laundry Day briefly though, and it seemed to work really perfectly with that swatch from the Horse Ranch sofas, but I preferred this Growing Together one in the end. So just sizing that down slightly so it fit into the space a bit better and didn't clip with the base of the pillars before I'm incorporating the same curtains that were used in the bedroom upstairs. And I think it's about here that I decided the tables that I've got had too much of a pattern going on, that it just didn't really work with the rug either. I end up swapping those out a bit later, but for now just grabbing a few entry item pieces since there isn't much of an entryway space to this house as it just goes straight into the living room. But I thought it'd be nice to include a little space for your Sims to hang their coats and grab an umbrella if they need to. The clutter that I ended up using was very on theme for the other rooms that I've done so far, so again a lot of the Book Nook kit will come in. as I include plenty of book piles everywhere to make it look like this spellcaster sim has been studying at the Magic Realm. And here's where I'm just swapping out the tables for the items from the Crystal Creations pack. I thought they tied in really nicely, and the pattern, well, they didn't have a pattern on them, so it didn't conflict with the rug quite as much as the Magic Realm items. And again, since these are still quite new, I haven't used them too much just yet, so I quite liked being able to have them here. I also desperately wanted to use one of these Crystal Creations shelving pieces, so that's why I was just flipping around trying to figure out where to put that for a while before I'm just selecting a bit more clutter from the Magic Realm debug. These are the items that your sim can buy or find in the Magic Realm. They can also win them from doing duels with other spellcasters, but again, I just got them from debug, which with Twisted Mexie's mod makes that a bit easier to access. So now just cluttering up the space with the books that I mentioned. These base game ones as well look really mystical, so I liked including those around the space as well. The only problem with those book piles though is that they're all very similar colors, or at least there's not a lot of color swatches, so I end up having to use them really sparingly or stack the base game pile of books, the really small one of just 2 books, on top of them to add some variation into the space. Now just adding a few of these familiar orbs up onto the bookshelf. I always wish that the familiars actually did a bit more in the game. There is a mod that you can get, although it can be a bit much because it basically sends your familiars out to go collect items for you. I think the pets can do that, but even if you just have the familiars from the Realm of Magic pack, they'll just bring you potion items. The only thing is in the mod, they bring so many all the time. So it's either you have that and just your inventory gets piled with stuff, or you don't have anything at all. I can't remember who made that mod, but again, if you're interested, let me know in the comments down below and I'll try and track it down. Otherwise, we're just moving into the dining room now, and I really wanted to include a fireplace, so I made sure to add that here and just raised it up on a small platform so that it looked a bit more intentional. And just looking through what chairs and table to use, I ended up going with a base game table and then these chairs from the Realm of Magic pack. The blue tied in quite nicely with the other kind of aqua blue colors that I had throughout the living space, and then just adding in a few decorations on this Crystal Creations shelf unit and a few plants around the space as well to brighten it up. I also included this slightly creepy doll in this other shelving unit at the entryway. That's one of the items that you can get from the Paranormal Stuff pack. I thought that would be quite fun to include. Again, even though I was focusing more on spellcaster items, that pack does feel like it ties in quite nicely. After adding a few more last-minute decorations into the dining room, I pop outside and start decorating the garden there. I did initially think about including another one of the spellcaster cauldrons, since it kind of functions as a barbecue as well, since you can make big pots of mac and cheese in there. But I ended up taking that out and going for laundry instead. You don't like the playstyle of that, you could always swap it out with the cauldron again. I also wanted to include a campfire, just from a gameplay perspective. That's not something I usually include, and it felt like it would work quite nicely. When I add the paving stones as well, my game decided to crash, so I did end up having to redo all of that. But the version that's on the gallery does include those paving stones. And now we're coming to the end of the speed build portion of this video, so if you did enjoy it, please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and enable notifications so you'll know when I next upload a video. You can also download this build using my EA ID on the Sims 4 gallery, which is just AWayfaringFrog. Thanks again so much for watching. I really hope you enjoy the screenshots and have a great rest of your day.